Yeah, it's one of those smells I can just sniff all day. Yeah.
Hello, I am here with Phil. Say hello, Phil.
Hello, Phil.
Hi, Phil. Phil is, I call you the Willy Wonka of the salt world.
There are other nice terms for it, including the salt geek, but
I like Wonka.
Yeah, Wonka.
So we're here. Where are we? Helford on the
Lizard Peninsula, so on the just on the south side of the Helford River.
Looking at somewhere beautiful. It's
Yes.
not my shitty studio in London, but we just went out on the rib and we went round to see the Cornish sea salt factory, and we're going to cook some food and talk about salt. We're going to do three things, because you always talk about the tomato tasting.
Yeah, it's very important. Yeah.
Very important. We're going to do a mackerel dish, and then we're also going to boil up some, looks like petrol.
Well, it's like a Blue Peter moment, isn't it?
Yeah.
So here's stuff we made out. So this is effectively, this is concentrated seawater. Basically, it's right at the point where the electrolytes are still in solution. It's just at the point where any more water goes from it and they'll start to bond into crystals.
Yeah. We did just boil away a cast iron. Have we got it?
Yeah.
Where is it?
It's probably, well, let's see.
Your Willy's poking out.
Oh, was it? Okay, good. Well, that's how I test how salty things are.
Very good.
Yeah, so we've got this here. What we've done here is we've managed to create Cornish blue salt.
It's the rarest, apparently.
It's the rarest. It is very rare.
Why did it go blue without being too scientific?
It's a little bit of copper. It'll be a little bit of copper from the iron in there. Salt is white. All salts are white when they crystallise. Any impurity in there will cause discoloration. So, for example, Himalayan pink is pink because it's got iron in it. It's got iron oxide, so it rusts in there.
And if you was to talk about Himalayan pink salt, why do they put a best before?
They don't need to. That's right. It's best for 80 million years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's purely to do with packaging and just to move people on. It doesn't. Salt's a rock.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a best before on it.
Because that's the interesting thing that I find about, or whenever we talk about salt with you. You know, I've got some kosher salt here.
Yeah.
And then people always go, oh, what's the best salt to use with cooking? What's the best salt to use with, you know, if you're salting your pasta water, would you dump a whole load of your Cornish sea salt in there?
Yeah, so the salt's all to do with minerals. So we all know about sodium. Sodium chloride is the sort of main constituent part of it, but actually what you want in your salt is all these other minerals, and the main ones being, from a point of view, the culinary point of view, being magnesium, potassium and calcium and sodium.
Yeah.
Table salts or processed salts tend to be mostly pure sodium chloride. What you want from a flavour point of view and a health and all the other bits and pieces and taste is you want those other electrolytes within the salts, because it changes the way you taste. It also reduces sodium and it's a natural balance. If you get that we all evolved out the sea, if you're happy with Darwin,
let's go with that.
Yeah, let's go with that. Let's take that as read, okay? If you're happy with that, then you understand that in every living thing, a plant and animal, the mineral profile of their bodies exactly matches the mineral profile of the sea.
Hang on, let me draw the what are they called? What are the minerals? Sodium, I can't even spell it. So terrible salt will only have that in it?
Yes, it only has that because all the other elements have been stripped off.
Right.
So salt in its natural form does not occur on its own, just as sodium.
So then all of these other things play pivotal roles in making food taste delicious.
Yes, and also in your health and your body for natural balance. So for example, sodium, we know sodium, they're talking about increasing blood pressure, potassium, actually something that decreases blood pressure. If you have the two together, it creates balance. It's like all things in life.
Lagom.
Yeah, gin and tonic, whatever it may be. Yeah.
Vodka, Coke.
Yeah, it's all those things create balance, yes.
The test that we're going to do with the tomatoes, if you was to do it with table salt and your salt, you would taste a big difference.
Yeah, so what effectively
I'll slice some tomatoes up. It's a test that people can do at home.
Yeah. So and it's a really good test because most people won't do this. But the important thing to remember is salts are electrolytes. Salt is a metal and an acid which are bonded together and formed a salt. When you break that bond again, so either when you add liquid, so in the tomato, or you put saliva, effectively what happens is that bond breaks, and they're negative and positive charged conductors. So effectively, it's like putting wires in your mouth to connect your food between your taste buds.
Yeah.
And what you'll find with this is the really good the salt test is you think, well, if I put the same amount of sodium chloride table salt on as a good sea salt, it should taste the same. It doesn't. It tastes very different because you're tasting via different type of electrolytes, and that changes the way that your brain and your nerve endings, and also there's an element of emotion, but also most of it's to do with nerve endings and your sensory effects in your brain. So
because a lot of people, when I season dishes, and people always go, "Oh my God, you have so much salt." But when I suppose you understand the balance of food, it's just like you can add quite a lot of salt because it does things to dishes that people don't really understand.
Yeah, on a flavour taste molecular level, you know, I mean, you know, salt, I tend to, you know, I've got 3 boys and they quite enjoy eating large amounts of steak, and, you know, I'll always use salt a day beforehand, and I'll cut the steak up and I'll then use salt. I'll start to break down those sinews and bits and pieces of salt. So actually, you know, you can take a fairly low cost cut of meat and turn it into quite a delicious steak just by adding salt in the day before. And it's not overly salty.
You're
Thank you.
Of tomato.
Yeah, great.
Canapes.
Yeah.
Eating that is just ridiculous compared to a normal salt. And I think that's what people need to try at home. That's what I want people to get across. Like, do the test and then really, because it tastes sweet.
Yeah, it's the sweetness of it, and that's the salt. And you get that magnesium calcium balance, which really sort of gives a different sweetness.
Do you want a slice of tomato? Come and say hi to the camera. This is Louise. Louise also works for Cornish sea salt. # not sponsored, just bloody love sea salt. More staff. There we go.
It is good to try it against the table salt, because that's the true test. That's where you get that aha. Man.
Yeah. When I try to explain flavours, it always gives that like that fullness, like a roundness in your mouth. You kind of go, It makes you salivate.
But it's worth. I mean, you know, obviously we're sitting here talking about Cornish sea salt, but it's worth doing that test with other salts. The thing I tend to say to people is, if you look at salt, and if it's a cuboid, so you can buy some, you know, some sea salts from the high street, and if it looks cuboid and regular, it's likely to be a pure sodium chloride crystal, which has just happened to derive from seawater.
Yeah.
So it's not actually the same as a really good sea salt. A really good sea salt is a salt that's been sort of crystallised in its natural brine, and post the crystallisation process, it hasn't been washed, because those other minerals we talk about, which you so nicely wrote on your board, particularly things like magnesium, which is very, very sticky. And actually, the problem with that is when you're trying to process it as a food manufacturer, when you're trying to process that, it gets very challenging. So you wash it off.
Yeah.
So effectively, you have. There's this, you know, you get the terroir from the point of view of the flavour of the land, and the merroir from the flavour of the sea. You get the merroir flavour of the sea. So we're sitting in Cornwall, we have this amazing geology. We've got, you know, the gabbro serpentine, high in magnesium, high in calcium. If I went down to Portugal, I'd have some interesting stories. If I went to France, some interesting stories. And they all have their own unique flavour. Sodium chloride tastes like sodium chloride. It doesn't matter whether it's from Brazil, Cornwall, or anything else. It just tastes like sodium chloride. But those other intricate levels of minerals give it a unique flavour of its merroir, of the area. So by washing the salt off, which so many manufacturers do, they just make it into a plain salt. And there are some really quite well-known names in the UK, which the salt. And actually, if you again you do that salt test with Cornish sea salt, you'll be surprised at the difference.
Yeah.
There is a completely different flavour, because they don't have that same mineral profile.
Right, bye, Louise.
Yeah, bye.
If you tell us a little bit about rock salt, and I'll start prepping the bits we're going to have for the mackerel.
Yeah.
So I can listen to you and talk to you and do something.
Yeah, so rock salt's a little bit like, well, it's a bit like chicken and egg. So it's which came first. When the planet formed, 8.5 billion years ago, and then the seas started to form after that, and the water over time eroded the rocks. And effectively, the salts which are in the sea are the eroded rocks. The minerals which are in the sea came through. So a rock salt are produced by evaporated seas. So take, for example, the Himalayan pink salts. They were once upon a time an ancient ocean which evaporated, left the salts deposited down the bottom. They were crushed via tectonic movements and sedimentary blah blah blah, and over time that was created and raised. Obviously tectonic movements taken up, and then effectively it's become a rock.
So would you ever run out of Himalayan pink sea salt?
There is a lot of it. I don't know what the percentage is, but there's a lot over there. The problem with Himalayan pink salt is twofold. Firstly, all rock salts are quite challenging from a calorie point of view, because they are very hard.
Yeah.
So you can put a piece of rock salt in a glass of water for 20 minutes and it'll still be there. Whereas if you put a nice bit of delicate sea salt in there, which, you know, we're using today, these lovely flakes, which are effectively they're formed on the surface. They have very little density, and they're sort of very light structures. And as soon as they come into contact with moisture, whether that be water in the food or saliva, they break down and they create more pathways to your taste buds. So rock salt, you've got to eat a lot of it or crunch it up in your mouth to effectively get it dissolved to do its thing.
So like for an everyday person, like we said, if we were going to like salt some water in some rice or some salt some water for some pasta, does it make a massive difference?
It makes a little bit of difference.
Yeah.
So it's whether two things. Firstly, you can taste that difference.
Yeah.
And secondly, whether you can afford that difference, because there is a price differential between the two of it. The main difference is the way any sort of protein or any sort of vegetable, any sort of matter reacts to salt. So the sinews, the fibres, the water reaction has a change and a difference when you add salt to some things. And if you've got things like magnesium in there, magnesium is more effective at an anti-inflammatory effect. So maybe a good example of that is like tofu. So tofu is a soy protein.
Yeah.
And the way it's produced is you break down the soya beans down through, you have this sort of white mess in the water. You put magnesium in there, and what happens is all those proteins go and they squeeze together. So effectively the same. So if I put you're young enough not to have any crow's feet on there, but if I was a little bit of magnesium and just do that on the side of your face, your crow's feet would go for that.
Really?
Yeah, it would just react. So it just takes it out through. It doesn't last for very long, but it has that effect. So it's an anti-inflammatory effect. It becomes a little bit more whimsical when we're talking about boiling something for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It's a little bit, but it will make a bit of difference. But whether you, as I say, whether you can afford or taste the difference, I always think that, can you taste the difference? If you can't taste the difference, it's a challenging one to spend the money.
If you was to do mackerel, would you salt it before cooking it?
I would salt it if I was either going to salt it immediately before I was going to cook it, or I would give it an hour or two and do it that way so it has some effect. What you don't want to do is sort of be a halfway house, because what you don't want to do is suck the water out and then not have the effect of it going back in again. So there's a time element.
So if you was to have like a piece of mackerel, put it down, salt it, do you put a little bit of sugar or not?
I would probably just put a bit of lemon juice in it as well.
Yeah.
That just pull it through. But I mean, sugar's probably a nice idea, but then you're more the chef than I am. So yeah. But the sugar would be good. I mean, anything that you're going to caramelise at surface, you're going to take it in. You're going to make that.
So it takes about an hour.
Yeah. Obviously, the thinner the product, the quicker it will go through.
Yeah.
The thicker, then the longer it takes.
Because I was watching a podcast the other day, and there was this Michelin star chef, and he said the one thing that will elevate your home cooking is brining and salting things before you actually cook it. It's what people don't understand.
Yeah.
You know, people just think, oh, I'll cook a bit of mackerel and salt it after. But it doesn't really have the same effect as sucking it into the middle.
No, because it's more than just the flavour. It's what it also does to the flesh.
Yeah,
it's just the plumping and softening. It's magic. It's a little bit of salt voodoo.
All my channel, I always talk about food waste, but also about balancing flavours. And salt is one of like the biggest players in balancing flavours, isn't it? So this little salad here is basically going to be like a little Asian kind of like mandolin style. We've got some sesame oil, some chilli, some fresh chilli, some chilli flakes. Yeah. Also going to put a little bit of vinegar and then obviously some salt. So it's almost going to pickle/brine.
Yeah. Well, those curing things. I mean, it's become again going back to the brining, the curing side. It's become really big again, isn't it? That fermented side. I mean, going back to does it make a difference to the turkey or the water?
Yeah.
But fermenting, if you're going to ferment stuff and cure stuff, then actually having a really good salt as your starting point makes a big difference to that flavour balance at the beginning. A really good way of seeing salt is like the amplifier of food. If you've got a really good amplifier, it'll make a difference to the way you hear that sound through the speakers. And that's the way to view salt, is it's an amplifier. It just turns the volume up. But a good salt will turn it up in a way different to a
treble,
cheap and nasty.
A little bit of middle,
you can adjust it.
And then MSG is the...
yeah.
Right, so garlic, ginger,
a
little bit of oil. So how does salt break down ingredients? You know, like sometimes if you used to do, like I would put some onions in there and I'd put some salt in it and just scrunch it through, and then all of a sudden they'll wilt and release all the moisture. What is...
Well, against that osmosis side, so you're effectively, you're just literally saying, what you've got an area of high concentration, low concentration, and what it's doing is the water within the cell goes, oh, I need to be over there, because I need to balance it off. So it's just, it's what all cells do. So whether it be plant or animal, is they effectively they will move towards an area to create balance. So like many things in life and world, if you've got things in balance, it works, and particularly with salts. But there's also genetics in this. So if you evolved in sub-Saharan Africa and there was no salts available to you, because salt's so bloody important, you wouldn't, the people who didn't excrete, so their salt would be much less salty, their urine would be much less salty. Those people would have been the people who could have run away from the predators faster and more likely to have sex with beautiful other things. Then not like you, to be able to reproduce and that stuff. And so you've got, depending where people evolved, makes a difference to their tolerance for salt.
Yeah.
There's a whole range of things, but actually having the balance of minerals in your body is the important bit.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I feel like I've listened and learnt so much. But we've got a little pickle salad. Go on, Phil, have a taste. I haven't even tasted it. It feels quite spicy, actually. Are you good with spicy things?
Yeah.
Well, it is spicy, isn't it? Right, we are recording. We're on channel 4. You please can swear. So look, here is it's a very simple dish, but it's a very good dish to explore, I suppose, the capabilities of salts. Really, super simple seasoned mackerel, and then kind of like a quick pickled fresh salad. There was some fresh mint there, but
You forgot about that.
Forgot about that.
Oh, that's good. Again, fresh mackerel, simply done over fire.
It's got a kick to it, isn't it? It's lovely.
You did it.
I know. I didn't realise.
I've ruined many a meal for the family because I really like chilli.
Yeah.
And nobody else does.
No.
And so, I can't quite get their levels. Yeah.
It's so spicy.
There's the problem is this is sort of Cornish air, you see, and the spices are stronger down in
Is that what it is?
Yeah,
Cornish jalapenos.
That's right, yeah.
My favourite salt, which we haven't even talked about, is the smoked salt.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes. I always do the test as well with people that have never tried it before. When you just like crack a fresh pot under their nose.
Yeah.
But it's just, what is the smoke?
You've got a little bit of green oak. It's almost like, you think of the green oak as a bit like a Robusta in a coffee.
Yeah.
And then you've got the apple and the cherry wood, and they're both quite sweet. So you get that sweet, smoky flavour, which is, it's superb.
Oh, it's bad.
Yeah, it's one of those smells I can just sniff all day. Yeah.
Not you, Willie.
Yeah, not really. No.
But it's one of those products. Everyone's like going, "Oh, he's used smoky salt again." But I love smoky flavours. I think it brings that kind of like easy element to it, and like using that as a finishing salt is just it's one of the best products. So if you want to get your hands on some smoky salt, website.
Website, the website, all the supermarkets. If you go on the supermarkets, you find all the right stuff on there.
Yeah.
But the website's a really good place to find smoke.
Great stuff. And you've also got endless ranges of other delicious
We've
things.
got, again, going back to the salt is the amplified flavour. So we've got lots of different, we call them pinch salt seasonings. And they're effectively salt with different sort of spices and seasonings outside.
What was it chicken skin, is that one?
Yeah, chicken skin, which is vegetarian, but it's just using herbs and spices rather than dried up chicken skin.
Yeah.
Really good on chips. That's a part of our chip range.
Yeah.
Salt and peppery, garlicky. We've got a whole range, and we always do new bits and pieces.
But brilliant. Way better than Malden. I can say that, he can't. But way better than all the other salts on the market. But go follow Cornish Sea Salt, because they did the tins.
What did you say?
Go fuck off. No, go follow Cornish Sea Salt and check out, because he did the viral video. The viral sardines. Yeah. It was a tin of sardines, peel the lid off, dab in some kitchen roll into the oil, light it, and then it cooks it, warms it up, smokes it. What a gift!
It's a summer treat, isn't it? Anywhere you can go, anywhere you can set a fire anywhere.
Yeah. We should have done that.
Yeah, that's right.
Anyway, right. Thanks, Phil. Well, it's Trevor Willie. Bye.